Tuesday night, week 10. We are already 10/17, well, 9/17 of the way through the season, onto the 10th. Pretty crazy how time flies, and pretty crazy how the DFS industry continues to get stomped on, it seems. We're going to touch on this New York news in a bit, but before we do that, Alex, Pete, and we're joined by the Listener League winner this week, Otis. Otis, congratulations. Dirty O32, right?
Yep, that's it.
All right, Dirty O32 for everybody who wants to challenge him to head-to-head games. Now that he's, kind of a rich man, winning our $2 league over there. Good luck to that. But just wanted to congratulate you again, Otis. That's a big deal. I mean, beating 99 people is in a single entry tournament is nothing to sniff at. Whether you win $50 or 100 or 1,000, pretty big deal. But overall, congrats there. Hopefully, this wasn't the only thing you took down. But before we get to your lineup, Alex, Pete, you guys have any? Let's go to you first, Alex. Any comments on how you did this week?
I don't want to talk about it. We'll put it that way. I was great until the Monday night extravaganza where every nice play just hit, and all I had exposure to and cash was Stevie, and I just got taken from a nice safe place to a not so safe place.
I'm right there with you. I had Stevie and Langford in my cash lineup. Still did not hit in a single cash game.
Well, I mean, I still dropped
this week where
mid 160s.
$170.
Yeah, I think I had 170. The close to 170. Dude, it's because you said that. You sent me that stupid text in the morning on Sunday.
Yeah, this is why you should always sleep in on Sundays.
A week where it takes 180 points to cash, and as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, fuck.
Dude, I was absolutely right too. I sent them all a text this Sunday morning that said this is going to be one of those weeks where it's 180 points to cash, and that's exactly what happened. Everybody just went off, and it sucked. But Pete, you finished third in the Listener League, so congratulations on, I think, being the first one to actually take listener money this year.
I was.
Very nice.
I came at first week.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and I finished top 10.
Congrats, Pete, on being. Congrats on being the.
I definitely did it in a much larger league than Alex did, though. So I think Alex did it in a 20-person league. I did it in a 100-person league.
Still counts.
Yeah, I think Pete wins out on that, and being top 10 is just like being top 75, Alex. It still nets you $0. So congrats on losing the $2 along with me. But we're not here to talk about you. We're here to talk about Otis and his lineup, which went for pretty impressive, Otis. I'm not going to lie. 217.66. You won by 0.54 points. Only beat Pete by 8. But the thing is, he did it with a defense that he was the only person to play the Cowboys defense, and it gave him 1 point.
When I saw Peters was out, I changed that. So I saw Peters out, and I was thinking Hardy,
Hey, I thought the same thing, to be honest with you. I thought the exact same thing, but I just faded that game entirely.
Yeah.
But it's not bad thinking, right? It's not bad thinking that Hardy's going to get in there and have a few sacks. Not that the team themselves will have 1 sack and that's it, right? I mean, it was pretty bad. But overall, let's look at your lineup. You had a Big Ben and Antonio stack, which went off.
Yep.
Antonio was 34% owned, so very highly owned in this. Ben was 17, so again, very highly owned. That stack definitely paid off. We don't need to hit on that. Devontae, 40% owned, paid off as a slot receiver, basically, right? Getting 8 catches for 67 yards and a touchdown with only 12 rushing yards. Pretty pathetic. But Lamar Miller, 2% owned, and he went off. So 2 rushing touchdowns, 44 yards total, but also 7 catches for 97 yards. Talk to us a little bit. Why did you like Miller against that Buffalo defense?
I don't know. I do some betting on the side, and I guess I kind of looked at it never plays out the way you think it's going to play out, I guess. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, the Bills' defense is, I guess they're looked at as really good, but, I mean, they're susceptible. Everybody's susceptible, and I don't know. I was making a lot of last-minute changes to my lineup. I actually didn't even I I had like 6 minutes to finish my lineup, and I was stuck on Roethlisberger and Brown, and then I kept flipping between that and Matt Ryan, and then so Miller was kind of always in my lineup, but it was my biggest problem was Roethlisberger and Brown versus putting in Matt Ryan and freaking Julio Jones. That was the thing that I was tossing up.
Hey, well, you went with the right choice. I mean, I stayed away from Ryan and Julio just because I figured that game was going to get out of hand and they wouldn't be able to throw all game. I would have liked Big Ben and Antonio more. I wouldn't have thought that it was a 3-point game potentially in overtime, but the game was definitely closer and definitely that played into your advantage there. So good choice, nice job. Yeah. I saw an article over the weekend that actually had Lamar Miller stats against Rex Ryan's Jets defense last year, and he ran in total for it was well over 200 yards and a couple of touchdowns. I apologize for bringing up the bad memories there, Alex. I don't remember if they were wins or losses, but
made us look real bad. Put it that way.
So I'm curious. Did you know that, Otis? Did that play into your thoughts at all? Knowing that Lamar could do something against the Rex defense?
Well, I mean, I know that I knew that he was good versus Rex last year, but I guess I really didn't kind of look at it that way because the Jets defense was kind of really, I mean, they got a good up front line, but last year they really didn't have a secondary, so they were really susceptible last year, even though they were still finished as a good defense overall, I guess. But I guess I really didn't even take that into. I kind of just always had my eye on him this week. I don't know why. You just get those gut feelings, and I just kind of stuck with him. I didn't take him out of every lineup. I did take him out of some for. Oh God, I can't even think of his name right now. Steelers.
D'Angelo Williams.
D'Angelo Williams, yeah. I did flop him out for in 1 or 2 lineups for Williams, but for the most part, he was pretty much in every lineup that I had this week. So.
Nice. Well, they both hit. So both good choices. Both good choices. We look at your other wide receivers here. Amari Cooper, who's 24% owned. He did well, but I'll have a question here. Why Cooper over Crabtree?
You know what I do is one of my habits for when I start looking at lineups and I start kind of chopping down guys is I look at how they did the week before versus the week before, and you kind of look for patterns because you'll get a guy who'll have 3 touchdowns and the next week he gets 6 catches and he gets 50 yards but he doesn't get anything. And then the next week he'll have you know what I'm saying, it's like the ebb and flow of the season. And I know that I look what he did versus the Jets and I'm like, well, there's no corner on the Steelers that it comes close to Revis or Cromartie. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking even if he doesn't get a touchdown, he's going to get yards. He's just that good. I mean, I watched him at Alabama. He's amazing. And I think he's going to be a really good player for a long time, but I don't know. I guess I just, because I'm a Ravens fan and the hatred for the Steelers, I just, I went with him. I just rode with him this week.
No, I mean it makes sense. 24% of people went with him, as 13% went with Crabtree. So you're in the majority there in choosing Cooper over Crabtree on that one. Let's see, Brandon LaFell we talked about on the show. I'm surprised we only saw 13% because I think he was 3,200 this week, Alex. That. We said, I think, on last Tuesday's show that he was good enough for cash, and 18 points he ended up being good enough for a tournament as well, so that was nice to see. Delaney Walker was your tight end, 9% owned, caught 2 touchdowns, 7 catches for 95 yards in total, and a 2-point conversion.
Yep.
Now, Delaney, was it just the fact that he was...
I've played Delaney. I've played Delaney in a lot of my lineups throughout the season, but anytime that Mariota's not in there, I won't touch him. So when they said Mariota was playing, I'm like, okay, I'm throwing him back in there because I'm not gonna. I mean, Gronkowski's kind of just the stereotypical pick, you know what I'm saying? And I was trying to look for some extra money, especially with wanting to get Freeman in there, and Brown. So I was kind of looking for a little bit of an edge. So I went with Walker, and once I knew that Mariota was playing, it was kind of a done deal for me.
Yeah, I actually thought heading into that Walker was, you try to look and you try to determine your top plays for the week. I actually thought heading into the week Walker was probably one of the top plays when you look at has happened. You know what tight ends do against New Orleans, first of all,
Yeah.
but also looking at just price to potential value.
Yep.
I mean, to me, Walker, I would say probably 80% of my lineups this week were either Walker or Heath Miller. And the ones that actually, what's funny is I finished third in the Listener League with a Heath Miller lineup, but the majority of my lineups that hit big were Delaney Walker.
Yeah, I had
Heath
one.
was
I had
owned
one
in
Heath Miller.
47% of lineups in this league. 47%.
Who was used in 47%? Miller.
Your boy Heath.
We talked.
My boy Heath too.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about him, but I mean, he was the most logical play with Big Ben back against the Raiders at only 2,700. It just made so much sense. You know, it didn't pan out because Williams went off, Brown went off, so it didn't pay off, but it still was the most logical play. You know, and I constructed, I would say my lineups were probably like 50% Miller, 30% Walker, and then 20% like random dart throws, you know, Charles Clay, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Delaney is Pete's favorite player this week. He won him his Survivor pool.
Yeah.
City.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so my eliminator pool
now?
that I was in was a 20-person eliminator pool. It was down to the final two, and I picked the Bengals on Thursday, and this guy took the Saints, and Delaney Walker. He really, like, I should send him like a thank you card or something, because he just kicked some ass for my lineups this week, like all across the board.
Yeah, same here.
Thank you. What about like an edible arrangement, maybe?
Yeah, I'm sure he'd get all over that. Like chocolate, what are they, chocolate peaches? Is that what they send these days? I don't even know.
You can dip any fruit in chocolate.
No, I'm dead serious. Like, that's what it is, right? It's like chocolate dipped fruit. That's the edible arrangement, right?
Yeah, but
that's what I'm saying. You can dip any fruit in chocolate.
I don't know who picks. I'm just saying, like, you can dip anything in it, right? You can.
Yeah, but
There's
how is
definitely pineapples and
You guys ever
strawberries would
seen
be
like a
one too.
jackfruit? No, a jackfruit, chocolate dipped jackfruit. If you don't know what a jackfruit is, you got to Google
be
it.
better than you saying peaches.
You got to Google what a jackfruit is and look at it, because that's a hilarious thing to dip in chocolate.
A chocolate covered jackfruit.
Yeah.
All right. So in the end, though, Otis, your flex was McFadden. Got you 16.2 points.
Bizarre
Not too
choice.
bad
I
there.
usually play
It was-
receivers in the flex, especially in big, like 100+ large tournament styles. So what made you stick around?
They've been feeding him the ball ever since they kind of let Randall walk, and I mean for the last 2-3 weeks now they've just kind of been feeding him, and I don't know. I guess again it's like I guess I looked at Philly and I didn't see them being able to hold up against that line. And I knew he was going to get some yards. Again, it was going to be, I guess it was just how many he was going to bust off. And he did have some decent some rushing. So I don't think he got a touchdown this week, though, did he?
No touchdown.
Really well.
He
Yeah, he just had
run the ball
put him out of yards.
27 times.
He was a high
had-
floor play. Very high.
So when you
floor.
assembled your lineup, did you save the flex for last, and then you just looked at what you could afford and put a guy in? Is that how McFadden ended up there?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was going to be either him. God, I'm trying to think of some of the other guys that I had. I kind of have a list of like guys kind of that I'm like, you know what, let me just throw them. I mean, Williams, I had Williams in the flex at a couple lineups, to be honest with you. But see, I didn't want to put Williams in this lineup because of Roethlisberger. I didn't want to do that. So I guess that's why I went with him. And then what it was is I kind of assembled this lineup last minute. I put the lineup in early in the week, and I just didn't touch it. And Sunday morning, I had to go to my stepdaughter's soccer game. And when the soccer game was over, it was like 12:15, and I'm like, crap, I got to get my lineup done. Now, normally on normal Sunday, I'm in front of the TV, watching ESPN or one of them shows to see who is not playing, and kind of finalizing stuff. So I was kind of at a disadvantage, and so
it worked out.
It did work out. Maybe it was like, normally I overthink everything and just completely crap the bed on it. But with this one, it was kind of last minute. I think I made like one or two changes real quick, set it in, and then when the afternoon games hit, that I switched out Denver with Dallas because I still had some money left over. So I flipped out them, which obviously didn't work out for me. And then I looked at McFadden. I'm like, maybe if Dallas's defense holds up, they'll be running the ball a lot, which I guess was another part of that thinking. So.
I beg to differ. I beg to differ. The Cowboys' 1 point is what won you the league.
That's true. That's a good point.
So that worked out just enough for you, depending on how you look at it.
I was sweating Alshon Jeffrey.
Just enough for
I was sweating that. I was sweating that game. I had to go to bed because I couldn't watch any more of it after the fourth quarter. At the start of the fourth quarter, I went to bed.
I'm actually rather glad you won and
more
Jeffrey
catch.
came through because the guy, I don't know if you guys looked, but the guy in second place,
yeah,
if he would have won, he actually played Big Ben, Antonio Brown, and D'Angelo Williams.
What a boss.
If we had him on the show, I would have made fun of him mercilessly for that, despite the fact that he got second place and I got third. I mean, that's just such a bad idea for upside. Like, generally speaking, it's like a counterintuitive idea. And I mean, you can say, well, game theory, nobody is going to have that sort of a thing. So if I have that sort of thing and nobody else have it and it works, okay, sure. But I mean, that's like saying you're going to get an edible arrangement full of jackfruit. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So, like, I'm actually rather glad I was rooting for me, of course, to beat both of you. Sorry, Sebs. But I was rooting for you to beat him.
Of course.
I was rooting for you to beat him because if he came on the show, it would just be 20 minutes of me making fun of him for playing all three of those guys.
Well, I think I had like a...
Like, that would have literally been the show. I think Alex and Mark know I'm dead serious.
You're the one that convinced me not to play Antonio and D'Angelo in the same lineup.
Well, remember I told you, I said I had him in those lineups too, and I just had to take him out because it was like,
well, didn't we start making one with both of them, and then we were like, oh no, we can't play them because they're both...
They siphon points. I mean, 16 out of 17 weeks, you're going to see that they siphon points from each other.
Right.
All right.
So, anyway, I think that's a good review. Otis, thank you so much for being on the show, man. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching, subscribing, supporting, and
thanks for having me on.
The link is out there. Yeah, absolutely. The link is already out there for this week's contest. It's in the description. Click the read more or show more. And then you can click on the link right from there and join the $2 league for this week. So again, Otis, Mr. Dirty O32, our Week 9 winner. Thank you very much. Again, we appreciate you coming on the show with us.
Appreciate it, guys. You guys keep up the good work, man. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Otis. All right, so let's dive into what's on a lot of minds right now, and that's this New York ruling of DFS and FanDuel being illegal gambling sites and not fantasy games. So to kind of summarize, Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, I don't even care if I'm pronouncing it the wrong way, wrote in a letter that his review concluded that DraftKings and FanDuel's operations constitute illegal gambling under New York law. This is a little bit ridiculous, right? We have the Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act of 2006, which has defended their legality ever since. But he finds that, quote, each DraftKings or FanDuel wager represents a wager on a contest of chance, where winning or losing depends on numerous elements of chance to a material degree. I think it's summed up best. Before we get to our reactions, I'm just going to read the FanDuel response to this ruling, because I think it summarizes it very, very well and pretty succinctly. FanDuel stated, fantasy sports is a game of skill and legal under New York state law. This is a politician telling hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers they are not allowed to play a game they love and share with friends, family, coworkers, and players across the country. This game has been played legally in New York for years and years, but after the Attorney General realized he could now get him some press coverage, he decided a game that has been around for a long, long time is suddenly now not legal. We have operated openly and lawfully in New York for several years. The only thing that changed today is the Attorney General's mind. I think that pretty accurately sums up everything to do with this case right now, because you've got to take a look at it. They're absolutely right. They've been around for a long time. They've had ads for a very long time. Even at the beginning of this year, they've had ads that blasted everybody and filled the airwaves for every single weekend prior to NFL starting. Nothing really happened. Nothing came into these guys' office until there was this quote-unquote scandal, right? The scandal that we talked about a few weeks ago, with the, again, air quotes around insider trading. This guy comes out and says, oh, well, I think I can get some press. I think that I'm going to make it look like I'm saving my citizens from gambling because I think that this could potentially be gambling and as addictive as gambling, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, it's not gambling. There is a lot more work that has to go into putting together consistent winnings in fantasy sports than there does to put something together in consistent wins in actual gambling in, say, a casino and chance games. It's virtually impossible to do that in games of chance. It's not virtually impossible to do it in games of fantasy sports. That's why I'm very passionate about this is not gambling. Put me against Eric Schneiderman in a head-to-head, and 9 times out of 10, I'm going to wipe the floor with him. I don't care what type of help he has. I'll take the same information that's out there and I'll wipe the floor with him because I know more about the sport
Mark,
than he does,
actually,
and more about the industry.
Something you said there is actually...
Maybe.
What's that?
If it were me or Pete, 9 times out of 10 seems correct.
Well, no, I was going to interrupt, Mark, because there's one thing that you said there, Mark, which actually is very critical to the counterpoint that I was going to... Well done.
Well,
to the counterpoint that I was going to make to Schneiderman's argument.
Again.
So, Mark, let's dissect what you said, because this is actually critical to understanding my feelings about the issue, which is you said you can give him whatever information he wants. You can have him ask whoever he needs to get help from, and you're going to wipe the floor with him. But actually, you're sweeping over something really important there, which is critical to my thoughts on this issue. And here they are, essentially. Number one, if we were to invite Mr. Schneiderman to our listener league, he would have no chance in cracking the money. But what's the first thing he would do? By the way, Mr. Schneiderman, you're invited. Come play with us, okay? What's the very first thing he would do? What is the very first thing he would do if he accepted our invitation to try to prove us wrong? He would immediately go start reading. He would immediately go start finding information. He would go to Google.
Yep, absolutely.
He would start learning. Okay, now Mr. Schneiderman's argument is essentially this: it's not a game of skill. Okay, but the very first thing he would do is he would start acquiring the skills to try to beat us. He would start acquiring information. He would start reading about the players. He would start trying to gain and attain every bit of knowledge and every tiny advantage that he possibly could. And that is precisely what constitutes the game of skill part. Anything you have which is a skill, which is skillful, is something you have to learn, you have to practice, and you have to be very knowledgeable about it, and you have to make good decisions. With all of that information, you have to be able to coalesce and assess that information in a competent way. What is that? What is that ability called? We have a word for it in the dictionary. It's called skill. If you have to have the information, you have to put it together, you have to look it up, that's precisely what skill is. So to make this argument, and then, I mean, to make this argument to me, it shows two things. Number one, it shows that he has, I believe, no understanding of what exactly this game is, number one. He must not have any understanding. Because if you have even an elementary understanding of what exactly this game is, before you can even approach playing a DFS game or playing a DFS lineup, you have to acquire some skill, or you will just be losing money. For example, if I were to bring my girlfriend in right now and say, here you go, sweetie, set a lineup, I'll set 1-2, who's going to win 100 times out of 100? With no information, with no practice, with no ability, with no skill, she will have no hope. But the moment she starts to acquire some by reading, by learning, by looking at what it takes to win, by learning a little bit of game theory, that's what you're doing. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're acquiring skill. So if your argument is that this is not a game of skill, one of two things must be true. Either number one, you have no idea what goes into playing DFS, which is likely the case, or number two, which is more likely the case for Mr. Schneiderman. Likely both of these things are true. Number two is FanDuel is 100% correct. This is a headlines grab. This is a political maneuver. And frankly, Schneiderman, I don't know who your advisors are. This is a pretty stupid political maneuver because you've got millions of people in New York who play and who vote. So that's my opinion, Mark. And that's why I interrupted you, because you were sort of smoothing over a critical comment there, which is, you said, go ahead, you can go research, you can go look up what you want and learn about the game and ask experts and this and that. But Mark, what exactly is that? If he goes and does that, what is that? That is the definition of acquiring skill. So you can't have you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say this isn't a game of skill, but I guess, by the way, in order to beat you, I would have to go and do these things, which is essentially the definition of acquiring skill. It doesn't make sense. It's a counterintuitive argument. And I think FanDuel did an excellent job on calling him out on this. I agree with you. I think those quotes are great. But that's the whole essence of the argument here, is whether or not this constitutes a game of skill. And I think just even a cursory understanding of what DFS is, like even with just a basic understanding of what DFS is, you will have a very hard time, you'll have a very difficult time arguing that it's not a game of skill.
Yeah, I mean, just to play a little bit of devil's advocate, and trust me, I don't agree with this, but I think this is the only way that you can make this argument, as flimsy as this is. It does take a little bit of research and skill to know how to pick games, pick lines, pick over-unders, that kind of thing, and that still constitutes gambling. But obviously, I completely agree. This is much more difficult than picking a winner or a loser in one or two options, where you have millions upon millions of combinations you can make with the salary and the amount of players that are there. But I think the real reason why he came out today is because he was so sick of seeing those DraftKings and FanDuel commercials rattling around his brain. Basically like I would do for a Cars for Kids commercial, he did for DraftKings and FanDuel today.
and that's a good argument, right? I mean, one of my good friends actually said the same thing. If FanDuel and DraftKings had turned down the advertising, would we see the same type of backlash that we're seeing, not only from the Attorney General there, but from interest all over the place? And chances are probably not. But at the end of the day, I agree with what you said, Alex, and absolutely agree with what you said, Pete. Obviously, you're right on the ball there. Alex, what you said was very, very true, right? If you're researching a bet on let's say an over/under, if you think the Bills-Jets game this Thursday is going to go over, you're going to do research on why you're going to go over, maybe weather patterns, history of play, et cetera, et cetera. There's all sorts of things you can acquire in order to help your decision. But at the end of the day,
it's luck.
It's
definitely luck.
Well, it's not just luck, but it's one. There's only one of two outcomes that can happen.
Right. Exactly.
Right? It's like choosing red or black on roulette. Technically green can happen, but red or black on roulette. Let's just say it that way. It's at the end of the day, that's a game of chance.
Too, so.
Exactly, and with fantasy sports, it's more like there's more than one outcome for every single opportunity, and you've got X number of players in your lineups, and I'm not just talking DFS, I'm talking season long here too. You've got X number of players in your lineups with 100 different ways to score points. I mean, there's not one way that sets it all in stone, right? There's all these different ways to categorize what you're really doing here. But at the end of the day, I think we can all agree with FanDuel, very, very well put by whoever wrote that by FanDuel, that this is a big attention grabber. I don't believe that this is going to set a big amount of precedence, to be honest with you, right? We've seen several states already take stand that DFS is legal. One of them, I can't remember, it was in this ESPN article that you sent over, Pete. One state has actually started a regulatory board for DFS, if I'm not mistaken. Trying to scroll through the article here, so I apologize. A representative in Illinois put forth the first daily fantasy regulation bills. So, I mean, you've got states out there that are trying to do the right thing. I believe Minnesota had the same type of ruling where they ruled it legal. They just had to go through, a regulatory board there too. So we've got states on both sides of the fence. This to me seems like a ploy to not only make headlines, but I don't. New York isn't big in casinos, is it? I mean, they have a couple of like small ones, but nothing massive. So I don't. It's not like Atlantic City or Vegas where DFS could be pulling people out from their casinos. I mean, I don't see what the point is there when it comes to taxes. These companies are legitimate companies that file taxes. They give tax forms to those who win enough to pay taxes on. Everything seems to be on the up and up here. I'm just very confused as to why he's going to do this for any reason other than to create headlines for himself. And agree with what Pete said again. It's not a good headline. You've got over 500,000 people that are active in DFS alone in the state of New York. That's not counting all of those who have thought about DFS or just play fantasy sports and are on the DFS side. So I think this guy's got more negative publicity coming than positive in the upcoming weeks. But I think we've had our time on that, unless, Pete, you got anything else?
I think Alex does, though.
It's like you don't read the chat.
Alex, go ahead.
I have the only thing I have to say is that at least these other states are trying to make it work. They're looking into the issue. They are figuring out how to keep it legal, or if it is legal. New York, just the Attorney General's. This is obviously an attention grab, and they didn't even announce anything like we're looking into it, we're thinking about things. No, it's done. Bye. That's it. You're not allowed to do that. Especially at the highest levels of government and things of this nature. You can't do that. You're not allowed. You have to go through a process. You have to at least say that you're going to do this to give people a chance to be like, no, you're an asshole. You didn't give anybody that chance.
Right, that's the other thing, is any sort of unilateral decision, like just declaring something, it strikes me as all sorts of number one, inappropriate, number two, fishy, and number three, potentially illegal. I don't think you can just unilaterally declare something illegal. You can say, this is how I interpret it, right? And I think that's more or less what he's doing, and as a result of it, he's attempting to make it illegal. But one of our listeners asked about it. I think there will be a court challenge. I think this will be challenged by both DraftKings and FanDuel. And frankly, it would not shock me if this was it did not hold up in court. But let's see. We'll see.
Yeah, DraftKings. It's mentioned in the article. DraftKings is definitely going to pursue, legal process in order to fight this, and we can only hope for the best. Hopefully, our New York listeners and viewers continue to watch us and continue to find value in us, and hopefully we keep you guys on for a long time, regardless of what goes on with this guy's sense. So, Mr. Schneiderman, we'll talk to you next time. Please join the listener league, though. I like Pete's idea. Join the listener league. Let's get him on.
And you know what? If he did, in that hypothetical scenario, if he legitimately did, the first thing he would do is he would go about starting to acquire skill to be competitive. So that completely nullifies his argument. It's not even a question.
That's what I'm saying. Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm gonna start a campaign. We got to get him on. But all right, we're going to now move on to our value picks for Week 10. Our Week 9 picks. It seemed like everything in Week 9 hit value, top price, middle tier. You found high scores all over the place, as evidenced, like we said before, by cash lineups running for 160, 170 and not hitting. Again, 9 times out of 10 that does not happen. We've seen it, I think, twice already this year. So, boy, pretty tough. But let's get you some value this week. Let's get that money back, and let's do some damage. So, first up, Mr. Derek, don't call me David Carr. He is 5,800 on DraftKings, 7,500 on FanDuel. Going up now at home. Minnesota's coming into town potentially with or without Teddy Bridgewater. Keep an eye on that. He went into Pittsburgh last week, threw 44 times, 24 of 44, broke 300 yards, had 4 touchdowns, totaled you 30 points, 5.5K last week. He's jumped all the way to 5.8K. This guy has, I think, hit value at every week except for 3, and from a cash perspective. And arguably the one that he didn't hit was one of the ones that he didn't hit value was 13.84. He missed by 2 or 3 points, so he probably wasn't the one that killed your cash lineup anyway that week. Alex, talk to me here. Minnesota, according to DraftKings, is pretty stingy against the quarterback, but Xavier Rhodes is not. Xavier Rhodes is friendly to opposing wide receivers. So why do you like Derek Carr this week?
We talked about this, I think, the last time a DGAF quarterback was going up against Minnesota. Stafford and Cutler have done very well against Minnesota's defense. Carr doesn't give a fuck when he throws the ball to his receivers, and he's got two outstanding outside receivers. One is just an absolute stud, and the other one is a tremendous route runner who seems to have gotten it back. So the only thing that I would worry about here is the lack of a running game if Latavius doesn't play.
Okay, and in the lack of running game, you mean that'll allow Minnesota to keep fewer guys in the box and put more people back, right? Because some people could take that as, well, if they have no running game, they're going to throw more.
Yeah, so that's another. I'm just thinking more efficiently without a running game. They won't be as efficient passing the ball and may not score many points at all. Where with a running game, I think they're able to put more points on the board. I'm thinking more in terms of touchdowns for Carr as opposed to opportunities to throw the ball.
Okay, good point. All right, let's move on to our next quarterback.
Real
Mr.
quick, blitz mode.
Blake.
Carr's tied for third in the NFL in touchdown passes, and he's only 5,800.
Roll him.
That's my blitz mode comment. Okay, on to Bortles.
That's a great comment, and I'm gonna just play off of that real quick. I forgot who, but someone I think tweeted at us or made a comment, Alex, saying that does it make sense to pay up for a QB anymore? And Alex responded with, "This year is kind of bizarro world," and it's very true, right? I threw it in there as well that, you know, guys that have Carr's kind of stats last year were, you know, 7,500 and up. There was nobody at value at 5,100 and 5,200 unless it was someone who, you know, lost the starting job in the middle of the week and you just threw in their backup, like an EJ Manuel type of thing. I got Blake Bortles in front of me. Derek Carr is not that guy. He's been putting up these stats all year, and his salary just refuses to go up. So great blitz there, Pete. Absolutely agree with it.
Dalton's like a top 10 quarterback, and he's still 6,500. It's just they're not
exactly.
Their prices aren't going up this year. It just doesn't make any sense.
And well, I think the reason
it's
why
very
is
strange.
I have a theory on why the prices are not going up, because typically prices are adjusted. Okay, production obviously, but also usage, right? Well, there's so many good options that it's not like somebody's going to be overwhelmingly used during a certain week, which will shock their price up, right? Because there's so many good options around that price range. It's not like Carr is going to be 40% owned this week. Like, he's a good play, but he's not going to be that much owned. It's just not going to happen, even at that price. Bortles, can I start off on Bortles?
Yep.
You can. So we've got Blake Bortles sitting at 5,600 on DraftKings, 7,800 on FanDuel, going into Baltimore, who's been extremely friendly to opposing quarterbacks, regardless if it's at home or on the road. Bortles last week at the Jets, 24 of 40 for 381 yards, 2 TDs, 2 picks. Also ran the ball 4 for 32. I'm guessing those are all scrambles, though. 26 fantasy points. So at a $5,400 salary, he goes up $200. Let me just real quick give you away game stats for Blake. 1,200 yards over 4 games, so he's averaging 306 passing yards a game, 9 total TDs, 4 picks, 4 fumbles, though. Only 1 loss, but just a quick heads up there. But, Pete, go ahead. Other than he's facing the worst defense in the league, first pass defense in the league, why do you like Blake?
Okay, here's the deal. If you look at Blake, Derek Carr, 19 touchdown passes. We all love Carr, right? Only 4 interceptions. That's why Carr's been a better play than Blake all year, is the interception difference. I'm sorry, that's why Carr's been a better play than Bortles. Bortles, okay, has been picked off 3, 4, 7, 8, 10 times compared to 17 touchdowns. Still not a bad ratio by NFL standards. But here's the thing. Guess how many interceptions Baltimore has on the season? 2015 interceptions
2
on the season. 3.
2.
So the thing that's keeping Baltimore's value down, the thing that's keeping Bortles' value down from week to week, he's losing a few points here and there from picks. Like, picks have been the one thing that have kept him out of that elite tier. And he's going up against a team that's league worst in the NFL against the pass, league worst in the NFL in interceptions. Okay, that's my argument. I mean, great matchup. His value has been held down by picks. Baltimore doesn't pick the ball off.
But it's funny because picks don't matter. It's 1 point.
Yeah. Okay. But in
no, I'm not arguing with you
right.
at all. I'm just saying, like, I understand the difference between the two of them as far as like who's viewed better right now.
Right.
But as far as the DraftKings
The
landscape,
problem with Bortles, though, is he's had 3 multi-pick games. So, I mean, it's 1 point, but if it's a multi-pick game, it suppresses your value, it suppresses your floor a little bit. But it's not going to happen. I doubt it happens against Baltimore.
and
I
either
think he
way,
lights them up.
I'll take three touchdowns, 3 picks. Do it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Have fun. Throw all your picks. Don't
So
care.
that's really the only argument against Bortles, and as we've seen, who cares for this week? Like, play him. Next name.
Roll them.
All right. Next name is Ryan. My wife is too hot. Tannehill. He is 5,300 on DraftKings, 7,100 on FanDuel. This is a guy who hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in the past 2 weeks. However, threw 2 interceptions against New England. He went, to clarify, at New England, at Buffalo. This week they're at Philly. Interesting, 3 away games in a row. Crappy schedule for them. 5,300 again on DraftKings, 7,100 on FanDuel. Alex, what makes you think Tannehill can actually get it done this week against the Philly D that's been, I guess, middle of the road?
I mean, I would much rather have the 2 guys ahead of him, just to be clear. But I think with the pace that Philly plays at, plus I think Philly's kind of figuring it out a little bit, not a lot, a little bit. And I don't think Miami's defense is very good. They just kind of pretended like they were good for 2 weeks right off the firing of old man Philbin. They're not good. Philly's going to score points. Tannehill's going to have to sling the rock, and if not for 2 goal line touchdowns, I think Tannehill would have had at least 1 last week, maybe 2, and a big catch and run sets up a nice floor for him for this week. Interesting tournament play. I wouldn't play him in cash. But I mean, he has the upside with weapons.
Answered my question before I could ask it. I was going to say the same thing. I don't think Tannehill's safe in cash, especially on the road, third week in a row. I think it's going to be tough. A lot of travel for them. But good clarification. Okay, we're on now to Jay. Alex calls me Cutler. He is 5,100. 5,100.
That's right. You guys don't watch the league. You guys still don't watch the league. You guys don't get the reference.
No. Still don't watch it.
Yep.
I will watch it probably when I'm 50 and I have my kids out of the house. But
just watch it when it's almost the last episode. Just watch it when it's done.
5,100 on DraftKings, 7,000 on FanDuel. Let's see. Last night he threw for 345 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. He has gone for value every week since week 2, pretty much. And I think that was when he went out of the game. Week 3 he missed, so he didn't play a full game week 2. So every week after that, since he's come back, he's hit value for you in cash. I'll put it that way. He's hit tournament value once or twice as well, but has hit cash value every week. This week going on the road to St. Louis, not a very long trip, but a tougher defense than he's faced in San Diego, Minnesota, Detroit, KC, Oakland. So each of those games that he's hit you value, he's had, I won't call it a cupcake matchup, but a better matchup than what he faces going into St. Louis. So tell me, Pete, 5,100, is Jay Cutler cash viable for you this week?
Actually, I'm going to say no. It's real close, but I'm going to say no. So to hit cash value there, he's got to get, what would that be, 15.6 points? I don't see it. And I'll explain why. So one of the listeners always asks, every week, hey, what stacks are you playing this week, Pete? And they tweet me, which is great. Feel free to tweet me all you want. I like it. And the answer I always give is, I look at it and I try to figure out what are the stacks that I like, and then I just play all of them. And the ones that I like a lot, I play more than once. Why do I say this? Because I am going to play a Tannehill stack this week. I'm going to play 1 Tannehill stack this week. I don't like it a lot, but I think it's good enough that it's worth a play in a lineup. I think you can stack Tannehill with either of his receivers, Landry or Matthews, and it would be a viable play. I am not going to play a Cutler stack this week. I actually respect the Rams' defense. I think this is not a good matchup on the road. The last time they met was a disaster, and I think the Rams have actually improved since then. This is going to be a heavy ball control game. Both teams want to establish the run, and they want to run a lot. This is going to be a lot of Gurley. This is going to be a lot of Langford, and this is not going to be. I am not playing any Cutler stacks, and I'm not going to use him in cash. I don't think he hits value. If you set value at 15.6, I'll take the under for Cutler this week. I'd rather play in cash. I would not play Tannehill or Cutler. In a tournament play, I would much rather play any of the other names we've already said: Bortles, Carr, or even Tannehill. I will play a Tannehill stack. I will play a Bortles stack. I'll probably play more than one. And I'll probably play more than one Carr stack. No Cutler stacks for me this week.
Really quick before we jump into running backs, I just want to comment that please watch the show back this week, Pete, because your dog just kind of photobombed you, and it was awesome.
The whole time.
What did she do?
She was just behind you, like she hopped up on the bed or whatever, and then she just kind of turned. She cocked her head sideways, so she was like right over your shoulder. It was. I was doing everything I could to not laugh out loud.
What it is, I've
awesome.
got her favorite sock, and so she'll come in here and she'll just pester me. She'll bring this sock and she'll put it in my hand, and then she'll like start like looking at me and sniffing at me, and then so anyway, that's what's happening. Is I've got the sock and she wants the sock, and she's not getting the sock.
What's in the sock? Okay, we've got running backs now.
Sock McFly.
First one up. First one up on the board is Mr. Duke Johnson Jr.
I watched a lot of Back
DraftKings,
to the Future
5,900.
with the Cubs, this year. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sure. I bet you did because it was the day, and
I was like trying to
everything
totally make it work, and then it didn't work. Yeah.
It's too bad. Did you wear your lucky shirt?
Nope. Might have to put it back on.
Good. You might. I mean, you might have jinxed it. You
I might have somehow really
the
screwed
curse
them
there.
over. Yeah.
Yeah. But all right, back to Duke Johnson, 4K on DraftKings, 5,900 on FanDuel. A guy that, let's see, has not had double-digit carries except for one game this year. More used as a pass catcher out of the backfield. Alex, I'm guessing at Pittsburgh, you expect this game the game flow to kind of be the Browns trailing a bit, having to use Duke Johnson more in the passing game. Is that what makes you think that he can hit value at 4K?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But, I mean, I don't really know how much of a shootout this is going to be without Ben, so I don't know if that's necessarily the reason. I think it's more if McCown plays, you can play him. If Manziel plays, I see it, Pete. If Manziel plays, you can't play Duke.
I'm pointing to her because when I point to her, she knows that I'm paying attention to her. So, anyway.
It was so distracting. But anyway, McCown plays, play Duke because McCown knows how to get Duke the ball. We've talked about this a lot this year. And Manziel just doesn't know how to do that.
Yeah, Manziel, as much as I want to watch him and as much as I'm rooting for him because he was so fun to watch in college, he's just not a pro quarterback and he's just not ready. And it's unfortunate for Cleveland fans. I feel bad for him, but he's not ready. Just another wasted first-round pick for you guys, and it just it sucks. But all right, I'll bring us back on track again. I apologize, guys. Next man up, Antonio Andrews, A squared, 3,700 on DraftKings, 6,000 on FanDuel. He came out of the gate with 19 rushing attempts for 88 yards, also caught a ball for 23 yards. Nice little unexpected catch there from him this past week. Only went up $100, Pete. So with that, are you looking at Antonio Andrews? Are you looking to play him at all against the Carolina D?
Probably not, but maybe. And what I mean by that is Carolina, actually, you can run on them a little bit, more so than you can pass. So I don't actually think that it's a terrible play to use him this week. I think there's more running backs with better upside, but I think as a tournament play, he's not a bad option. Blitz mode.
Wait, oh.
Bad option.
No, go ahead. Say what you got to say. Just blitz mode it.
All right, blitz mode.
If you have
Blitz mode.
yards per carry,
if you
we're
have something opposite.
What?
No, go ahead. Blitz mode it. We're wasting time. Go.
Oh, what did Mark say? I didn't hear what Mark said. It just didn't. It was muddled.
If
Anyway,
you have something.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I have something
This
to
is
say.
not blitz mode.
I have something to say. Stop interrupting me. Good yards per
fucking
carry.
say
Looked
it.
pretty good running the ball. Stop interrupting me then. Looked pretty good carrying the ball. And he does catch the ball. I know he only had the one catch this week, but before that he was catching the ball out of the backfield. So
Yeah, it's not like he's shut out of the passing game.
I like his floor. I don't love his upside, especially against Carolina, but Carolina's been not so great against running backs, despite popular opinion of how good their defense is. It's been more the secondary as opposed to the front seven. So I think Antonio Andrews is a high floor, medium ceiling type player for that price.
All right. Looking at our next guy, we've got a couple guys here, actually. We're going to look at the Oakland backfield, assuming Latavius Murray is out. These guys are both 3,500 on FanDuel. I don't have on DraftKings. I don't have FanDuel up in front of me. I don't know how much they are there, but 3,500 for either one on DraftKings. Taking on a Minnesota defense that I think fits the same type of billing that Alex just gave Carolina. That their run D is really worse than people think. Marcel Reese or Tywan Jones. Pete, I'll throw this one at you. If you had to play one, which one and why?
Probably. Oh man, that's such a tough call.
It's so hard. If there was one clear guy, I think it would be an easy question.
Honestly, though, guys, I think this is a moot point, and I think we can just move on to the next one because from what I've been hearing,
Olawale?
It's Olawale first of all, and from also what I've been hearing, I think Murray's on track to play. So he's trending in the right direction. I think he's moving towards playing. So I think this is sort of a moot point. If he doesn't play, I guess Reese, just because Reese always has that ability to catch like 9 passes for 80 yards. So I guess Reese if he doesn't play. But from what I know right now, I think Murray plays, and this is a moot point. So blitz mode.
Good blitz right there. Let's move on to theoretically 3,400 on DraftKings. 5,300 on FanDuel. I'm trying to find him on my sheet here. He is coming into Green Bay. They're coming off the bye. Again, another guy who doesn't run much, mostly used in the passing game. Does the same thing go here for Theo Riddick as it did for Duke Johnson, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, as Pete's been saying, and we've been saying all year, he's got a high floor. He's catching the ball out of the backfield, and they're not a very good team, so they're going to be behind. So he's same as Antonio Andrews. I think he has a higher floor, but with higher upside because he catches a lot of passes.
So Theo Riddick for you is cash viable? Yes or no?
Yeah, if you need to go that cheap at running back, you can play Riddick.
Okay. Let's see. Again, at 3,300 on DraftKings, 5,300 on FanDuel. Doesn't have to get you much in order to pay off that value, especially with the full point PPR on DraftKings. Next up is another pair of guys that you'll have to keep an eye on as to who's going to be the starter, who's going to get some sort of workload there.
I think we can we just say for this one, could we just say it's really obvious you should play one of these two, and then let's just go through and say who we think it should be? Because I mean that's all the analysis is. Like one of these two you really obviously should play, so let's vote on who we think it is. Because we don't know, right?
So
like
this is yep.
We're not
it's James White or Brandon Bolden. Both are sitting at min price. With Dion Lewis now out for the rest of the season, LeGarrette Blount is out there at 4,900, but Pete's absolutely right. You're likely going to want to play one of these guys, Brandon Bolden or James White. Alex, we'll go to you first. Which one would you play?
James White, no question. He wasn't active last week because Dion was back in the lineup, and the only reason Bolden got those touches is because he was still active because he was a special teamer. James White will get that passing down work if active, which he should be without Dion.
Pete?
I think James White again. James White was inactive, but now that Dion Lewis is out for the year, I think he's active. I think Bolden's the guy that they keep in reserve in case another one goes down, and they also use Bolden on special teams. So I think this is James White's show, and if I have to play one of them, which I'm going to, it's going to be White.
So I'll agree with you guys. I think James White, we're going to sweep it. He was, just to note, a healthy scratch this past week, and he did fill in Week 7 when Lewis went down. He filled in as the pass catching back that week. So what Alex said was absolutely right. He will come in. What's that?
I was gonna say, give me his stats. I thought you were looking at it. I got it.
I had him up. In Week 7, he ran 2 for 4, but caught 3 balls for 26 yards. So again, that's filling in after Lewis got injured. It's still a timeshare, but James White, if you're going to play any of them, we all like James White as your GPP pick for a very cheap min-price punt running back.
And last caveat. Last caveat. Dion was supposed to play that game and was a late scratch, so James White wasn't included in the game plan as much. I think now that he's gone, James White is included in the game plan more going forward.
All right, moving on to wide receiver. Let me clear out my filter here. Bring open the games. Our first man is Marvin Jones, not a famous R&B or Motown singer, despite what me and Pete like to believe every time we hear his name.
I just think the name Marvin is really cool.
4,300.
You know, like it's a cool name. I like it.
It is. It's hip. Would you say it's hip? Could it be the Cat's Pajamas?
It could be. And for the record, I actually really like Motown music, so I'm a big fan. Temptations. Hell yeah.
Oh, I'm a huge. Did you ever see the Temptations movie?
No, I heard it was good though.
Watch it. Watch it. Trust me. Great movie. Great movie. A little long, but very good movie. Especially if you like their music. Let's go to. So he is 4,300 on DraftKings, 5,400 on FanDuel. He caught 5 for 78 in a week where Tyler Eifert ended up having a huge day, catching 3 touchdowns. We're going up against Houston now. Alex, 4,300. Marvin Jones, not a bad option, but Houston gives it up to the wide receiver 1 pretty well, if I remember correctly. So if you can't afford A.J. Green, are you definitely throwing in Marvin Jones just to get a piece of that Houston secondary?
Mainly because if you look at his game log, and I'm going to read it from week 1 on. Week 1, 3.9. 2, 13.1. 3, 20 plus. 4, 2, 5, 11. 6 was 24.5. 8, 3.4, 9, 12.8. So what he's been doing is 3 points or less, low teens, 20 and above. And it's the 3rd week of that pattern. Gonna drop 20.
Interesting theory.
It's a good theory. I said it.
Trend.
I said it when we brought him up after his last big game, and I said the only worry is that he could put up a stinker because of the pattern, and he put up a stinker because of the pattern, and it's continuing on the pattern. That's all I'm gonna say. Just chugging along.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I mean, you'd have to assume though they're going to focus on Green. They're going to focus on Eifert, and Jones should be getting more looks than he currently does. I mean, at the end of the day though, if they somehow struggle, you're going to see Green get all the targets. But we don't predict that to happen. At least I don't predict that to happen. So Marvin Jones, interesting play there. You wouldn't.
Yeah,
would you
I think Jones is a matchup play, but like again, blitz mode. Here's my rankings for the 3 names because they're all almost identical prices. 4,300 Jones, 4,200 Devontae, 4,100 LaFell. I go Devontae 1, LaFell 2, and Marvin a pretty distant 3. So if I'm in that price zone, Marvin's the most expensive. And if I'm looking for a receiver in that price range, looks like I'm playing a lot of Devontae this week. Alex, disagree?
I don't disagree. I think Marvin is tournament only, where Devontae and LaFell you can play in cash.
I agree with that statement as well. So
right,
let's move. We can move on to Floyd, right?
3 real fast.
Let me give out
Right
some
there.
prices. Let me give some prices. Devontae is 4,200 on DraftKings, 5,800 on FanDuel. LaFell 4,100 on DraftKings, 6,200 on FanDuel. I would flip it. I would actually go LaFell 1A, Devontae 1B, Marvin distant 3rd. Just because I think LaFell is more of a deep threat than Devontae, but I'm right there with you guys. I like both of them a lot more than
Right, plus the Giants are terrible, so I have no problem with your ranking, Mark. The reason I'm going Devontae is because he's back, he's fully healthy, and I expected him to be a James Jones plus. I expected him to get the James Jones production plus more yardage plus more catches. So that's why I'm going Devontae 1. I actually think he's going to have a big end of the season. That's why I like him. And you could certainly say the same about LaFell.
Hey,
okay, but let's move to Floyd.
I sure as hell hope so.
That was
sure
me
as hell
ducking down.
hope
So.
But there we go. 3 guys, 1 shot. Nicely done, boys. Let's move on to our 4th wide receiver, and that is Michael Floyd of the Cardinals, going in at 3,800 on DraftKings, 5,900 on FanDuel. Alex, is it because I'm not even looking at past stats right now. I'm just going to say, other than him kind of picking it up the past 3 weeks, is it because he's probably not going to be facing Sherman shadowing him?
I mean, it doesn't hurt, but I think that the Seattle defense can be beaten, and Michael Floyd has proven his worth lately with John Brown struggling, and especially coming off of that injury, especially and coming off the bye. I think Michael Floyd had more time to get reintegrated in this offense. Remember, this is the guy that was the 2 ahead of Brown before fingers were pushed through his hand in training camp. It took him a little while to get going. I think he's going, and I don't think he's going to stop. So I don't care who he's playing, even though Seattle is technically the number 1 against wide receivers. They're not number 1 against every wide receiver. It's more the number 1 that's playing on Sherman's side. And I think that this offense is a team that can get Seattle to struggle. I don't see Seattle being as good as they've been the past couple of years. When they're challenged, they're not meeting the challenge this year. And this is one of those games where I don't think they're going to meet the challenge.
And you'll see, we've seen this year that Sherman actually shadows a number 1 if they're doing well enough against that defense, right? So you could see Brown or Fitzy getting shadowed by Sherman, and that just leaves Floyd open for whoever they put on him on that side of the field. You've seen receivers 2 and 3 have good days against that Seattle defense, just to reiterate your point there, Alex. So I like him as a very high upside GPP play this week. Very, very high upside.
I would play him in cash, to be honest.
Wow, that's interesting.
If I had to,
that's interesting. We'll have to have more discussion on that Thursday, because that'll open up a lot if you can play him in cash. That'll open up a lot.
It's just more if I can't get those 3 guys that we talked about before, I would be okay with Michael Floyd. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Okay. I mean,
Cardinals.
Right.
Carson
Okay,
Palmer. Carson Palmer has thrown 20 touchdowns through 8 games. That's 2.5 touchdowns per game. So somebody's catching him, and it's usually the receivers. And as you pointed out, Sherman's probably on Fitzgerald, which gives him a nice matchup. To give you an idea of how I view Floyd this week, I have a real tough call in regular fantasy. I have Devontae Adams, Brandon Cooks, and Michael Floyd, and I have to bench one of them. Right now I'm benching Floyd because Cooks is playing Washington. Adams, again, I really like the rest of the way. But that's a real tough call for me. You guys agree with that call, by the way?
That's tough for me. I would almost bench Cooks.
Almost. Against Washington? Against Washington?
I said almost, but when you said Washington, I decided not to.
Washington's the deciding factor for me.
Keep an eye out, though, because you've got.
I am playing Floyd over
secondary.
Diggs.
Yeah, I would do that.
What?
Yeah, I would play Floyd over Stephon Diggs.
Do?
I am not playing Floyd over Jordan Matthews.
I would.
Would you play Floyd over Jordan Matthews? That's tough.
Floyd over Jordan Matthews? No.
That's tough, though, right? That's real
Matthews.
Right now, I have Matthews starting, but I'm debating.
I'm good with Matthews.
I could be okay with Matthews because I don't think Miami puts Grimes on the inside ever, and that's where Matthews lines up more often than not. So he's probably going to get a plus matchup there.
Everyone is
okay
a plus
Matthews.
matchup against Miami.
Yeah, but so that's where Floyd's in that tier. Floyd is in the Devontae Adams. So here's where I was going with all this. Floyd is in the Devontae Adams, Brandon Cooks, Jordan Matthews tier. And if you think of it that way, Floyd's price is not in that tier, right? Like Floyd is, the closest one to him is Adams, $400 more expensive. Cook's way more expensive. J-Matt way more expensive. And what was the other name I gave? I forgot. Was that it?
You had Adams, Cooks.
That's Floyd. It. Adam, yeah. So he's in the same tier and he's the cheapest one on the tier.
Diggs was the other name.
Yeah. He's in the same tier and he's the cheapest one on the tier. So he's a good play. All right, blitz mode.
You're sitting Diggs at Oakland, man. If Teddy B plays,
I'm playing Floyd over Diggs. I think.
I feel like I'd almost rather play Diggs with Hill the way Teddy B looked last week.
Part of the problem that I have is so I have AJ Green, Devontae Adams, Cooks, Michael Floyd, and Diggs. So I got a bench 2.
Yeah, you don't really have a choice there. So
yeah, I'm playing Green, so then it's Adams, Cooks, Diggs, and Floyd, and
It was like me this week.
Adams looked really good.
I played D'Angelo. I had 2 flex, so I played D'Angelo, DMC, Cooks, and Ivory, and I had to sit Woodhead
Yeah.
in the league. Moving on.
All right, let's move on to our next wide receiver, and that is Devin. Of course, I'm going to screw Mark over and finally catch a touchdown against his Packers. Funchess. He's sitting at 3,400 on DraftKings, 5,200 on FanDuel. This guy still only had 4 targets, but caught 3 for 71 and a touchdown, obviously. Been min-sal almost all year and hasn't hit close to cash value once. So at 3,500, a jump up $500, we kind of posited earlier in the year because of that touchdown. Those touchdowns kind of increased the price significantly. Going against a Tennessee defense who, if to my knowledge is correct, is not missing their top 2 defensive backs like the Packers were. Alex, you still have faith in Devin Funchess?
Tournament, maybe, just because I think they've been waiting for him to turn into something. And I think the catch he made, the contested catch that he made, was ridiculous. And I think if you were still watching the game at that point, which I don't know if you were, it was a nice grab.
There was a period where I stopped.
That's the grab. But I'm just worried that he had 4 targets. That's it. He had 4 targets and did well. It was a touchdown towards the end of the game that put him over the hump. And again, it's what we said, touchdown. The touchdown shot him up. Where a guy that didn't go up, who we're going to talk about in a minute, didn't get a touchdown, didn't go up at all, but had a better game.
So really quick, just want to point out, I mean, I'm a Michigan fan. I watched Devin Funchess his entire time there. He made contested catches nonstop. The guy can do that. He can go up over somebody and make the catch. He has a huge catch radius. They just have to use him, right? I thought he would be able to eventually step into what Kelvin was, right, but not as fast because Funchess is a former tight end. And he's just not there yet, in my opinion, right? He made a great catch, which is what we knew he could do. But 4 targets, like you said, that's a big worry for me. So I'm off him this week. But at 3,400 GPP play, I could see people playing him. Moving on to our next guy, Chris Givens, sitting at 3,200 on DraftKings, 4,500 on FanDuel. Going against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have not been great at all against opposing quarterbacks or opposing wide receivers, I should say. But Givens, who with Steve Smith now out, Givens kind of steps in, it looks like, as wide receiver 2 over there. So at only $3,200, Pete, what are you thinking for Givens this week? Do you think he can snag you 5-6 catches and just hit, almost value on his catches alone?
Maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know. This is a situation where I don't really know what to expect. I don't think Welker does a whole lot this week. I'd be shocked if he did. Stedman Bailey gone.
Wrong team.
Oh, my goodness. We're talking Ravens, aren't we?
Yeah.
Wow.
Moved.
Sorry, guys. I'm in 2014. Okay, so that means who's he up with? He's got Kamar Aiken on the other side, and they're playing
Kamar Aiken on the other side.
The Jags.
Okay. I don't know. Like the thing about this is they traded for him, right? So they obviously saw something. What I wanted to do with these 3 guys is rank them because I was going to put Givens as a distant third between the 3 we're about to talk about. It could be an okay play. The one thing I will say about Baltimore is they certainly throw the ball, but no, I'm not a fan.
I am. I'm a big fan. Not in cash, definitely in tournament. Without Steve Smith, he is when he really saw his work. I think he only had 1 target before Steve Smith got hurt. He finished 4 targets, 3 catches, 57 yards. But he is the downfield threat that Joe Flacco needs. He is probably somehow the most established receiver of this entire group, and he's been slowly integrated in this offense. This is only his 4th week in this offense with Mark Trestman, and I think that Flacco throwing his pizza balls to Givens downfield could pay off big time in a tournament, but I would not trust it in a heartbeat or for a second in a cash game. But the opportunity is there without Steve Smith because he could essentially become the wide receiver 1 because Aiken is awful.
Oh, a little throw over to Pete there for the Italian voice. We've gotten so many comments on that. People love it.
Who did I say was slinging pizzas this week?
Flacco.
Oh, it was
No.
the Castle. The
Who?
Castle Ball Des.
Oh yeah, the Matt Castle. You guys, right? That was perfect.
Castle,
Matt
right.
Castle flinging pizzas to Des. Hey, you've been watching Joe Flacco. He knows how to get it done, right? You fling the pizza, Des Bryant. He goes up. There you go. You got a touchdown. No problem.
It's let's see. Hang on one sec. I'm trying to do some action here in the chat room.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm Jewish, bro. Appreciate it.
While we are on that, let's move on to tight ends. Hopefully, Mark can get it figured out. So, Alex, you actually want to talk about Eric Ebron?
Wait, what about
Oh, we forgot about DGB. Okay, all right.
Yeah, my
This
boy.
is my number one of this rank. We got
Yeah,
3,400
me too.
Funches, 3,200 Givens, but at 3,100, we've got Dorial Green Beckham. I think this is, if you need a real cheap wide receiver play, I think DGB is the play.
I
would go DGB Funches Givens if I was ranking.
Yeah, I actually would have Givens ahead of Funches just because I don't know. I think I would have Givens and Funches tied, but DGB is won by a large margin. The thing he did on Sunday was chunk yards. It wasn't like he had one deep catch and then he had like a 2-yard catch and he kind of like did it that way. 14, 20, 20, 14, and then I guess, what was the other one, 11 or something like that? I forget his final numbers. But that's very impressive. And they said before that week, like they said with Antonio, they said Antonio Andrews is going to be the workhorse and we're going to get DGB more involved. Antonio Andrews was the workhorse. Dorial Green Beckham had 10 targets. I know it was in a bit of a game, and they won. And I know it was a bit more offensive than this team usually gets because they're playing in a high-paced environment against the Saints in the Dome. But 10 fucking targets for Dorial Green Beckham, he's gonna reel those in for easy cash value every week if you give him 10 targets. Easy tournament value. He's almost a must-play in both. Because if he's getting those targets, there's no way he finishes with less than 12 DraftKings points any week if he gets 10 targets.
Even with Josh Norman on him? I don't
care.
know if I agree with that.
I don't think he would be on him anyway.
I think he would.
If he does,
if Wright's out, I think Norman's on him. Yeah. Okay, tight ends.
If he does, I'm off.
You don't think he would be on Justin Hunter? Just it sounds like a joke, but serious question. You don't think he would be on Justin Hunter?
I really thought that was a joke. No.
I think it kind of is, but like at the same time,
it all depends. I think Norman definitely stays on the outside. I think he stays on one side of the formation, though. I could be wrong on that. But if he does stay on that one side, then yeah, I could see DGB having an okay game. Their two outside guys are their two best corners. Norman is number one in the league right now. Their other outside guy is very, very good. It's their slot guy who can get beat. That's Ben Wickery, or however you pronounce his name. And that's who Cobb kind of picked on when he was wide open in the end zone there for the game-tying touchdown that Rodgers couldn't see him. So let's get off that game. Screw you, Alex, for bringing it up. And move on to tight ends. Eric Ebron, 3,300 on DraftKings, 5,300 on FanDuel. Coming against the Packers, who kind of give it up to the tight end. They have for a long time. Micah Hyde hasn't been doing a great job. Clinton Dix did a decent job last year, but for some reason, neither of them is doing a great job right now in terms of covering the tight end. Big athletic guys you see get in the end zone like Olsen did last week. Alex, he's only 3,300. Do you think he gets in the end zone, easily hits cash value?
I don't know if he easily hits cash value, but he should because, I mean, basically, who else does Stafford have to throw the ball to besides Calvin? Golden Tate's not really doing anything this year. Ebron has been solid, not spectacular, but solid. He's been doing enough with his targets. He's been catching the ball for decent yardage. It's not like he's doing like 7 catches for 19 yards or 3 catches for 51 yards and it doesn't really happen. He's consistently getting about 10 yards per catch, and it's a very nice thing to see considering he struggled so much last year and has looked so much better this year.
All right. Pete, you have time for one tight end?
I'll do one. Yep. Who do you want to give me?
Your favorite.
Don't give me Kyle.
Yeah!
Your favorite. It is your favorite, Kyle Rudolph, who He's playing the Raiders this week, who are terrible against tight ends. 3K on DraftKings, 4,700 on FanDuel. But even with that knowledge, I'm not going to endorse him this week because he just catches 2 balls a game.
Nope.
He stays in and blocks most of the time. So tell me, Pete, what are your thoughts?
I'm with you. He's Kyle Rudolph. Of course I'm not playing him. Give me some ASJ. I'll play ASJ. There you go. I analyzed 2 tight ends and 2 for the price of 1.
The only reason Rudolph's in there.
I love it.
You put him in there every week.
I love it.
See what I'm going to say.
Just to mess with you. Just to mess with you. And your analysis on ASJ is, I think, pretty succinct and to the point as well, right? If he's in, we play him. We've been saying that for the past 3 to 4 weeks while he's been, practicing and not playing, practicing and not playing. So keep an eye out for that if he does play. Exactly. If he does play, we got to throw him in there.
Really needs, especially with all the drops Evans had this week, to have a reliable pair of hands in the middle of the field.
6 or 7 drops in one game. It was terrible.
And he still went for like $170 or $180, whatever he went for.
Yeah, imagine what his game could have been if he actually reeled in some passes. And
he could have finished off better than Antonio, because a couple of those were like 40, 50-yard bombs.
Yeah, that was rough. All right, on to Pete. You got to go.
I got to go. You want me to give me my defense
Pete.
of the week? Defense of the week.
Sure.
Why don't you go ahead?
You guys know, right, that all season long, despite their failure against Indianapolis, I've been on the Broncos all season long, and after that very poor showing, I expect them to come energized. You should pay up for them. Alex Smith is awful. I don't care how many times you want to put the game manager label on him. The Broncos are going to demolish Kansas City in Denver. The last time they played them, they had a touchdown, they had 2 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries, they scored 21 fantasy points in standard scoring. Play the Broncos, 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 and play the Broncos.
Without DeMarcus Ware.
Yeah, play them anyway. Doesn't matter. They've been good. They've been good all across the board. Their secondary's been good. Their linebacking core's been good. Their pass rushers have been good. Play the Broncos. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm all over him. You play him.
Real quick, did you see how offsides Von Miller was on that one play on Sunday?
I actually did not watch that game. I was watching other games.
I think Von Miller was in front of Andrew Luck before the ball was snapped. Like, he was about to tackle him before the ball left the center's hand. It was crazy. I've never seen anybody that offsides in my life.
No, that's why you
go back and watch that. I missed it. But there you go. They get away with that stuff apparently.
Matthew disagrees with us. Broncos are a trap. Yeah, I know they have injuries, but you know what? They've been good. They've been good all over the field, and I'm still using them. I think
for Boykins.
They're not the only team to use. There are other teams this week that I like. For example, I actually like the Patriots this week. I think they're a good play. I think they're worth spinning up for. I love the Rams this week. You guys know my opinion of the Bears, so I love the Rams. So I mean, there's a lot of defenses that I would spend up for this week. But anyway, I gotta run.
All right, Pete.
Everybody,
thank you for joining, sir. We will catch you on Thursday. Thank you very much. We're going to take a flip back to tight ends for our last Mr. Crockett Gilmore. Same reasoning here as Chris Givens, Alex?
Yeah, but he has a little bit more rapport with Flacco. He paid off for his last time, barely, with the touchdown, but I'm okay with it.
That's all we needed.
He should, and it's the same exact as Givens, but Givens is more tournament upside. I think Gilmore's more safe cash, especially if you really want to put ASJ in there and you need to pivot. It's Gilmore again, like it was 2 weeks ago when we did this.
Right.
And I'm totally okay with that, just because, especially without Steve Smith, he gets an extra 2 to 3 targets, and he gets you 3 catches for 40 yards and then maybe a score.
He also gets you red zone looks, as we saw last week, which is very nice.
Yep.
Very nice to have. So let's try to give some value picks here, right? Pete recommended spending up for the Broncos like he does every week, but let's move on to value at defense and the Chiefs. So let's go opposite the Broncos here. The Chiefs D, 2,600 on DraftKings, 4,300 on FanDuel. Is this because they're coming off a bye?
Because they're coming off a bye. They were very good the last time they played Denver. They actually had a defensive touchdown of their own. I know they didn't get 21 points like the Broncos, but they had 11, which is solid, especially for this cheap. And I just think overall they looked much better, and Peyton has just consistently looked really bad. Indy's defense made him look terrible, and Indy's defense is atrocious. If Indy's defense can do what they did to Peyton this week, the Chiefs can do that and more, is all I'm saying. They have tremendous pass rushers on the outside that can get to Peyton.
So playing in Denver doesn't make a difference to you?
No, I mean, as far as a value defense goes, no. I think they still are set up for a decent day.
So would you play them in cash?
In cash? I'd rather play Carolina, to be honest, but I would consider it. If I needed to drop down, I would play the Chiefs.
Right. Okay. Interesting. I got to ask because a lot of listeners want to know that question. And for me, I understand. I'm the same thing. I think that coming off the bye, they should have some time to heal up, rest up, get a decent game plan against a team that just traveled, had a bad loss. It's going to be interesting to see. I think the Broncos D is going to come out and play tough, but I think that KCD is going to be pretty prepared for that offense as well. I think the under hits in that game. I'm not really keen on looking at offense on either side in that game. So let's move over to our last value pick at defense and our last value pick overall for the night, and that's the Bucs hosting Matt Castle and the Cowboys this weekend. Is Matt Castle the reason you like the Bucs?
Yeah, you already said it twice. Matt Castle is starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. It's not quite Matt Schaub. If Matt Schaub was playing whatever defense he's playing against, I can promise you a pick six. But Castle is as close to that as possible, where he'll do it at least 2 out of 3 games. He did throw not that good. He's not. I get it.
He did throw 3 picks against the Giants defense.
Yeah, and I get it. He looked better. He finally threw the ball to Cole Beasley. He has Dez Bryant back, but he sucks. He threw a pizza ball to Dez for a touchdown, and Cole Beasley basically took all of all the yak yards. It wasn't like he threw him open. He threw him the ball, and Cole Beasley made himself open. So this is definitely more of a tournament play because I just like the upside. And surprisingly, they've had 3 games over, I think, 13 points already, the Buccaneers defense. Like, they have that upside. And this is one of those matchups that presents itself with some good upside.
All right.
What is it exactly? I know they have 2 games with at least – they have a 10, a 15, and a 13. Okay, so those are still nice games. They can get to the quarterback. They have a very nice linebacking core. Between Quan Alexander, Levante David, and everybody else they have over there, and they have a hard-hitting safety. They've got pieces there, and it's still Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith can scheme his way into a turnover or 2 occasionally, but it's just I feel the upside. I feel it, but it's not safe. I see it. Like it's so tantalizing. I can taste it.
It's very true. I mean, you're right. Castle has the likelihood, as high of a likelihood to throw a pick and a pick six as anybody in the league. To be honest, though, I'm staying strictly GPP for this one. I don't know about you.
Oh no! I said that first thing was specifically. I
apologize.
Yeah, I would not do this in cash. But if you want to drop down a little bit for a tournament, I have no problem with this at all.
Yeah, for a tournament, I can see it there, but I do like Dez being back. We saw what he did against Philly. He can do the same thing as he starts getting healthier. He can open up the box as well, get McFadden used more in hands, get the ball out of the hands of Castle, which I think is going to be Jason Garrett's ultimate goal here. But agreed, GPP. Castle only needs to throw the ball a handful of times to eventually hit someone on the other team in the hands. So you're not hoping for much there from the Bucs defense. Very cheap price there again. And with that, plus they're at home as well. With that, we're going to end it for the night. Good show tonight. Appreciate again Otis coming on. Congrats again on winning the Listener League. For those who watch, we have the link to the league is in the Show More description of the YouTube channel. I'll also be tweeting out the link. Hopefully Alex can retweet it, and you guys can all join sooner rather than later. Winner of the league comes on the show, just like Otis did. We get to break down your lineup with you, and you guys get to win some money, mostly my money, to be honest with you. But let's those links. Keep subscribing, sharing, liking, leave comments, ask questions on Twitter, etc. We thank you guys for tuning in. We thank you guys for watching everything and for watching every week. For at Alex Hanowitz, for the absent at P. Karaganis, I'm at MN Milano. Thank you guys, and we'll catch you next time.